You know, the most fascinating thing that I find with the mind and the body is how they communicate with each other. And what happens is, uh, with our human experience in this machinery that is seemingly so complex, it is hardwired for survival. So let me take you through just a few steps that people do to try to increase their nervous system performance and then give you my perspective on this. I'm going to just take a few lists. So if you go to Google and you just type in like how do you strengthen the nervous system, they're going to have a few things to list. Let me just name a few. Deep breathing, cognitive behavioral therapy, spending time in nature, nourishing your gut with a good balanced diet, right? Crying can be one thing too. Prayer and meditation, yoga or Pilates or some form of resting exercise, regular sleep, getting to bed on time, waking up on time, and talking to someone you trust. So with this list, what I want to focus on mainly is not necessarily what to do, but where your starting point is. Now, you know, in the fitness industry, I've been involved with exercise sports my whole life. Ever since I was about 5 years old, I used to go play in the playgrounds and play tetherball and kickball, dodgeball, all those fun sports that we played as kids. And then later on, I started getting into team sports, basketball, soccer, and all that other stuff. But here's the other thing too: a lot of us are playing the game of life and are doing things that are going to involve our nervous system by default. I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. Any decision you make to move forward in life, to move with some endeavor, whether it is education or to start a business or to make yourself to where you are strong enough to where you can overcome certain fears, well, it requires a certain level of mental fitness. Now, the mental fitness part, there's two parts to this, but one is often neglected. I'm going to share with you today, okay? Of all the stuff that I listed here, you can take deep breathing or meditation or nature walks or something else into consideration, or even oh my gosh, having a good cry, which I'm not going to elevate that one to a level, but sometimes that happens by default depending on this. And I talk about this a lot in my videos for those of you that are watching my channel. It is the principle of resting tension. Resting tension is where the rubber really meets the road. Now, being a fitness enthusiast, an exercise guy, and a sports enthusiast my whole life, having played all kinds of sports from individual sports to team sports my whole life, ever since I could, walk and run, I have done a couple of things as far as personal development, as far as like lifting weights, doing stretches, doing certain moves. And when I was taking the martial arts years ago, certain movement patterns and everything else. Well, here's something I never came to myself in until just a few years ago when I realized that our mind is also in the game. Because of the survival hardwiring of our brain is going to make a determination based on the information that it's given. It's going to determine whether something is safe and can move towards it, or if something is dangerous and must move away from it. So, how do we put that in practical terms, and where is our starting point? So, again, what I was saying as a fitness enthusiast for years, I know I keep saying that, but I used to just lift weights and stretch and do cardio, and that's it. Okay, so all those things are very important components of fitness. However, boy, years ago, like for example, I had a tear in my shoulder where I was bench pressing heavy dumbbells and I felt the muscles start to tear and I dropped the weights before the dumbbells could finish what they started. So here's what I'm trying to say with that. If I'd known then what I know now, I would have taken the time to release those muscles, massage the muscles, maybe even properly stretch them in order to get those muscles conditioned to handle that much weight. I also would have worked a little bit more closely with varying tempos, like in some of my videos, I explain the difference between doing a tempo move where you go 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up, or maybe 3 seconds down, pause at the bottom and do 3 seconds up to remove what's called the stretch reflex out of the workout. I could have trained a little bit smarter instead of just training harder. So, what do I mean by starting point and resting tension? Where does that fit all in? Let me explain this to you. Every single one of us, whether it's emotional or biochemical or physical, we all accumulate a certain amount of stress in our lives. Okay, we all have a series of events that take place. Let's just break down the component of physical stress. I want to start with that right now. Okay, the physical stress would mean that I have a certain job or certain sports where I do repetitive movements. Like if I'm a baseball player, I might throw my arm like this and I might start to throw too much to where this shoulder is now starting to wear out. It's starting to fatigue more. My left shoulder feels better. but my right shoulder is fatiguing from the repetitive stress. Okay. Now, what that is doing is, let's just pretend like this is your breaking point. Okay. Everything that we have collectively as humans, we have one thing in common. We all have a limited amount of stress that we can take in our lives. But let's just give that a number. Let's just say that's 200 pounds of stress. Okay. 200 is the limit. I'm just going to start with that number. But we start to, here's our optimal stage right here, where we are experiencing as little or as zero stress as possible. But then over time, through repetitive use, we start to accumulate that stress. And like playing in a movie, or like playing a movie or watching a movie, you press pause and you pick up right where you left off. So, case in point, to my point back a while ago, by saying that I was in this world of weight training and lifting weights and stretching and cardio, general fitness to keep myself in shape, right? I would keep that stress going, and then I would just press pause and pick up where I left off. Why doesn't stretching help? Stretching is not sufficient enough, in my professional opinion, just because your muscles have to be warm. You can't stretch cold taffy. It's best to do some kind of a massage work. We're going to elaborate on this more and more, so keep watching my videos. I really want you all to stay tuned in because I'm really excited to share this stuff. So in the accumulation of stress, when you press pause, let's just say it's at 100 pounds, but it takes 150 to produce symptoms. Okay, you start to hurt, ache. You're like, oh, doc, please, my shoulder hurts, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's where you have the symptoms, right? Okay, so when you climb up to that ladder of stress and you go here, now your body's only going to allow you to push or move with 100 pounds because you're at your 100-pound starting point, right? This is where you've accumulated so far. But if you don't take certain measures to back this stress down to as low as possible, it's going to keep accumulating, and it's going to be more difficult for you to perform your daily tasks, whether it's lifting weights or doing some kind of a physical task, working, carrying boxes, lifting stuff, carrying, doing your household chores, everything else, right? So when I work with patients as a doctor of chiropractic, and I'm putting, relieving that tension in their back and their muscles and everything, I'm effectively de-stressing the body and giving them a better starting point. So let me just put this in perspective. Say you've accumulated 100 pounds worth of tension, 200 is your breaking point. Well, with each therapy that you apply to your physical body, now you can go 90, 80, 70, 60. Okay, now what you're doing is you're increasing your body's performance by decreasing the stress. You're opening up to where your body will allow more stress. Okay, makes sense? Now that's where I want to start in the parameters of discussing this uh, mobility, or the better starting point of resting tension. So I hope that you all have a better idea of the concept of resting tension. That resting tension means this is where you're starting. Now, whether it's 100 or 120 or 50, wherever your starting point is, it's going to be contingent on this. It's going to be contingent on how well you keep those muscles and the joints and everything as de-stressed as possible by using foam rollers, using self-myofascial release techniques, getting chiropractic adjustments, getting massages every once in a while. What you are doing is you are effectively reducing that stress to a point where you're now being able to allow more stress. It's pretty fascinating stuff. And I want to share with you guys this on an emotional component as well as a biochemical component, because let me just give you kind of a bit of a spoiler alert, will you? The spoiler alert meaning that possibly you're developing sensitivities to certain foods, and now those foods are starting to irritate you just simply because you eat too much of that one thing. This is something that a lot of times when I discuss this with my patients, it kind of shocks them and they realize, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. It's so I experience that. Yeah, I've been eating too many almonds. I like to snack on almonds. Yeah, I like to eat a lot of chicken. I like to eat this food or that food. And now, yeah, I'm kind of getting bored of that food, and I have to show them pointers on how to de-stress with in respect to that. If you are the least bit curious about this, then stay tuned for some upcoming videos because I got way more stuff to share with you all. I'd appreciate your time.